Jake Morrison stood in the middle of the huge room and looked up at the alien faces staring down at him. The Galactic Council chamber was bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. Thousands of different creatures filled the seats that went up and up until they disappeared in the shadows above. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. A few appeared to be floating balls of light that changed colors as they moved. Jake had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. He was Earth's top diplomat, chosen to represent all of humanity in front of the most powerful organization in the galaxy. His team had worked day and night to show these aliens that humans deserved a place among the stars. They had shared human music, art, and stories. They had given away some of their best technology for free. They had even helped solve problems on alien worlds, asking for nothing in return. Lisa Barnes stood next to Jake, her military uniform crisp and clean. She was a ship captain and had spent months flying alien diplomats around human space, showing them Earth's cities, its people, and its achievements. The aliens had seemed impressed. Some had even said that humans were remarkable for such a young species. But now, as Jake looked up at the cold faces above him, he felt a chill run down his spine. The Chancellor of the Zephyrians stepped forward. His body was made of blue crystal that caught the light and threw it around the room in dancing patterns. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but his words were sharp as knives. The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding the human application for membership, the Chancellor announced. His voice carried to every corner of the massive chamber. After careful study of human history, behavior, and potential, we have concluded that humanity is not suitable for admission to our civilized community. Jake felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. He had expected this might happen, but hope had kept him going through all the long months of negotiations. The Chancellor continued, his crystal form growing brighter as he spoke. Humans are too violent. Your species has spent most of its existence at war with itself. Even now, conflicts rage across your homeworld. You cannot control your own emotions or impulses. You make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. You take dangerous risks without considering the consequences. A creature that looked like a giant praying mantis with shimmering wings added its voice to the condemnation. Your expansion into space has been reckless and chaotic. You terraform planets without proper environmental studies. You mine asteroids using methods that could destabilize entire systems. You approach every problem with force rather than wisdom. Jake, listen to the accusations pile up. Each one stung because there was some truth in them. Humans did fight wars. They did take risks. They did let emotions guide their choices sometimes. But Jake also knew these same qualities had helped humans survive and grow and reach for the stars when others might have given up. Another alien spoke up, this one resembling a tall, thin person with skin that shifted between different shades of purple. We have observed human behavior for decades. You cannot even achieve peace among your own kind. How can we trust you with the responsibilities that come with galactic citizenship? How can we believe you will follow the ancient protocols that have kept peace among the stars for 10,000 years? More voices joined in. The aliens talked about human crime rates, about wars that had happened centuries ago, about the messy way human politics worked. They spoke about how humans explored space without asking permission, how they made contact with other species without following proper procedures, how they seemed to think rules were suggestions rather than laws. Jake felt Lisa tense beside him. He knew she wanted to argue, to defend humanity, to point out all the good things humans had done. But Jake had been a diplomat for a long time. He knew when a decision had already been made, and when arguments would only make things worse. The Chancellor raised one crystal hand, and the chamber fell silent. The vote was unanimous among all 12 founding species of the Council. Humanity's application for membership is denied. Furthermore, we strongly recommend that humans limit their expansion beyond their current territory until they have achieved a higher level of civilization. Jake stepped forward. His voice was steady and calm, even though inside he felt a mixture of disappointment and growing anger. We thank the Council for their consideration of our application. We came here in good faith, offering friendship and Cooperation. We shared our knowledge, our resources, and our culture. We helped solve problems and asked for nothing in return except the chance to be part of something larger than ourselves. He paused and looked around the chamber, meeting as many alien eyes as he could. If this is your final decision, then we accept it. We will not beg or plead or try to change your minds, but we will also not limit our expansion or ask your permission to explore the galaxy. Space is big enough for all of us. A murmur ran through the chamber. The aliens had expected anger or desperation. They had prepared for threats or promises. They had not expected this calm acceptance. Lisa stepped forward and began reading from a datapad. All human personnel will be withdrawn from Council space within 30 days. This includes our trading posts in 17 systems, our research, teams on 6 worlds, and over 3,000 human citizens currently working throughout Council territory. The first signs of concern appeared on some alien faces. The Altarians, with their blue scales and large eyes, shifted nervously in their seats. Human doctors had been working on a cure for a plague that was slowly killing their people. The vegans, tall and thin with elongated skulls, looked worried too. Human engineers had designed the power systems that kept their colonies running. Dr. Rachel Green, the head of the human medical team, closed her datapad with a soft click. She had been so close to finding a cure for the Altarian plague. Months of work, breakthrough discoveries, lives that could be saved. All of it would be packed up and taken away. Commander Alex Turner began calculating the logistics of the withdrawal. 3,000 people to evacuate, 17 trading posts to shut down, 6 research facilities to close, equipment worth billions of credits to move. It would be the largest evacuation in human history. But Jake was not finished. He had one more thing to say, something that would echo through the galaxy for years to come. "We wish you well in your future endeavors," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the enormous chamber. "Perhaps someday, when humanity has evolved to meet your standards, we might speak again. Until then, we will pursue our own path among the stars. We will find our own way to be civilized." The human delegation turned and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. No angry words, no threats, no desperate final pleas. Just dignity and a quiet promise that humanity would continue without the Council's approval or help. As they reached the great doors that led out of the chamber, Jake paused and looked back one last time. Thousands of alien faces stared down at him, and for just a moment he thought he saw uncertainty in some of their expressions. Had they made the right choice? Only time would tell. The doors closed behind the humans with a sound like thunder. In the chamber, the aliens sat in uncomfortable silence. They had made their decision based on careful study and ancient wisdom. Humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too chaotic for their ordered civilization. They had no way of knowing that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. 6 months had passed since the Council's rejection, and the effects were spreading across the galaxy like ripples in a pond. Ben Carter stood on the observation deck of Kepler Station and watched the last of the alien ships leaving the docking bays. The station had been humanity's biggest trading post outside their home system, a busy hub where dozens of different species came to buy, sell, and exchange goods. Now it was almost empty. Ben was the station commander, and it was his job to shut everything down. The Council had made it clear that humans were not welcome in their space, so humans were leaving completely. No exceptions, no special deals, no gradual transition. When humans did something, they did it all the way. Katie Walsh worked in the engineering section, her hands moving quickly over control panels as she disconnected the fusion reactors that powered the station. These reactors were human-built, using technology that the aliens had found impressive but never quite understood. The power systems supplied energy to half the civilian sectors where alien families lived and worked. A vegan engineer watched her work with growing panic. His people were tall and thin with long skulls and worried expressions. "There must be some way to keep the reactors running," he pleaded. "Our children will freeze without power. Our food will spoil. Our life support systems will fail." Katie looked up from her work, her face sad but determined. I'm sorry, but my orders are clear. All human technology has to be removed. The council wanted us gone, so we're taking everything with us. But surely you can leave the instruction manuals, the Vegan said desperately. Or train some of our people to maintain the systems. Katie shook her head. That would be providing technological assistance to council species. We've been ordered to have no contact with council members, except to coordinate our withdrawal. The same scene was playing out across dozens of worlds and hundreds of space stations. Human engineers were packing up equipment that had kept alien colonies running smoothly for years. Human doctors were closing medical facilities that had saved thousands of alien lives. Human teachers were leaving schools where they had been, sharing knowledge with alien children. Captain Steve Hudson commanded a fleet of cargo ships that were hauling away decades of human presence in council space, mining equipment from asteroid belts, atmospheric processors from terraforming projects, manufacturing plants that had produced goods for dozens of alien worlds. All of it was being carefully packed and shipped back to human territory. The job was enormous. Humans had built or improved infrastructure on over 100 different worlds. They had established trade relationships with 40 different species. They had research partnerships, cultural exchanges, and joint projects that spanned the galaxy. All of it was ending. Dr. Emma Rodriguez supervised the shutdown of the Xenobiology Research Center on Proxima 7. Her team had been studying how different alien species could work together biologically, looking for ways to help species that were having genetic problems. They were close to major breakthroughs that could have saved entire populations. What about the Centaurian children with the blood disorder? Her assistant asked quietly. Our treatment was their only hope. Without it, they'll die within a year. Emma's voice caught in her throat. She had worked with those children, seen their bright faces and eager minds. Now she had to walk away and let them face their fate alone. The council made their choice, she said finally. They decided humans were too dangerous to associate with. We can't force our help on people who don't want it. The economic effects were becoming clear within weeks. Trade routes that had depended on human-maintained jump gates began experiencing delays and failures. The gates needed constant fine-tuning, the kind of precision work that humans excelled at, but other species found difficult. Supply chains broke down as human manufacturers stopped producing goods for alien markets. It turned out that humans made a lot of things that other species had come to depend on. Medical supplies, electronic components, specialized tools, even simple consumer goods. The aliens had gotten used to human quality and efficiency. Ambassador Jake Morrison, now back on Earth, received reports from across the galaxy every day. Most were requests for help that he had to refuse. Some were angry demands that humans reconsider their withdrawal. A few were desperate pleas from alien governments facing real emergencies. The Altarian plague was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Without human medical researchers, the aliens were struggling to find treatments. Their own medical knowledge was advanced in some ways but limited in others. Humans approached disease differently, using creative methods that aliens found strange, but effective. The Altarian government is begging us to reconsider, Jake's aide reported during their daily briefing. They're offering triple payment for medical assistance. Jake shook his head firmly. Our orders are clear. Complete withdrawal from all council affairs. If they wanted human help, they should have thought about that before they rejected our membership application. The military situation was becoming serious too. General Patricia Evans, who commanded Human Defense Forces, was getting increasingly desperate messages from alien governments. Human patrol ships had been keeping pirates and raiders under control in 17 different sectors. Human tactical systems and fighting reputation had maintained peace in regions that had been chaotic for centuries. Now the pirates were back, and they were bolder than ever. The Corithian Assembly is requesting continued protection for their merchant ships, General Evans's aide reported. Pirate attacks have increased by 300% since our patrols ended. Not our problem anymore, Evans replied coldly. The Council wanted to handle galactic affairs without human involvement. Let them handle their own security. But it was not just about technology and military protection. The cultural impact of human withdrawal was becoming apparent too. Human music had become popular among several alien species. human art and literature, had found enthusiastic audiences. Human games and sports had spread to dozens of worlds. Suddenly, all of that was gone. No more human musicians performing in alien concert halls. No more human artists teaching in alien schools. No more human writers sharing stories that helped different species understand each other. The silence was noticeable. Captain Morrison had one last duty to perform. As the final human transport ship prepared to leave Council space, he transmitted a message to the Council chambers on the Central World. It was brief and formal. This is Ambassador Jake Morrison of the United Earth Government. Human withdrawal from Council space is now complete. All human personnel, equipment, and technology have been removed as requested. We wish the Galactic Council success in their future endeavors. This will be our final communication. He paused, then added something that was not in his official script. We will not be back. The transmission ended, and the last human ship crossed the border into free space. Behind them, they left a galaxy that was already starting to realize what it had lost. On dozens of worlds, power grids were failing. In hundreds of star systems, trade was slowing down. Across the galaxy, problems that humans had been solving quietly and efficiently were suddenly becoming crises that the aliens had to handle alone. The Council had wanted humans gone, and humans were gone, completely and permanently. The silence that followed seemed to echo across the stars, growing louder with each passing day as the true consequences of the Council's decision began to unfold. Humanity had walked away with dignity intact, taking with them not just their people and technology, but something else the aliens were only beginning to understand they had lost: hope, innovation, the willingness to take risks and try new things. The belief that problems could be solved if you just worked hard enough and cared enough to find a solution. The galaxy was about to learn just how valuable those human qualities really were. 2 years had passed since humans left Council space, and Admiral John Stevens stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavour, looking out at stars that no human had ever seen before. The ship was humanity's newest and most advanced vessel, built with technology that made Council ships look old and slow by comparison. "Report, Navigator Collins," Admiral Stevens said, his voice calm but excited. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Collins smiled as she read from her instruments. "We've made contact with 17 different species in the Outer Rim territories, Admiral. None of them are part of the Council. The Drakmari Confederacy wants to form a full alliance with us. The Stellar Merchants Guild is asking for exclusive trading rights." Admiral Stevens nodded with satisfaction. When the Council had rejected humanity, they had forced humans to look elsewhere for friends and partners. What they found in the outer regions of the galaxy was remarkable. Dozens of species that the Council had either ignored or actively rejected were eager to work with humans. Dr. Peter Kim, the Chief Science Officer, approached with a data pad full of exciting news. "Admiral, our research teams have made incredible breakthroughs. Without Council regulations telling us what experiments are too dangerous, we've developed quantum tunneling technology. Our ships can now cross distances in days that take Council vessels months to travel." The transformation had been amazing. Cut off from the Council's vast resources and ancient knowledge, humans had been forced to innovate and adapt. Instead of following established procedures, they had to invent new ones. Instead of relying on proven methods, they had to create better methods. The result was a technological explosion unlike anything in human history. Commander Amy Foster, who ran the Colonial Development Division, had even better news. "We've established permanent settlements in 43 new systems, Admiral. Our terraforming techniques are so advanced that we can make a dead world livable in half the time it takes Council species. We're not just surviving out here. We're thriving." The secret to human success was simple but revolutionary. Unlike the Council, which organized species in strict hierarchies based on age and power, humans treated every new alien race as potential equals. They listened to what each species needed and offered what humans could provide, creating partnerships that benefited everyone involved. The Drakmari were a perfect example. The Council had labeled them as too aggressive and warlike to be civilized. But humans recognized something familiar in the Drakmari: a species that valued strength but also understood honor and loyalty. Instead of trying to change them, humans worked with their nature, creating military alliances that used Drakmari fighting skills to protect peaceful traders and settlers. Captain Tony Martinez commanded the first human diplomatic mission to the Ethereal Collective, a group of energy beings that the Council had written off as impossible to communicate with. Using new translation methods and a willingness to completely change how they approached communication, humans had successfully made contact with beings the Council had ignored for centuries. Their understanding of quantum mechanics is incredible, Dr. Lisa Thompson, the mission's physicist, reported from the research station. They see reality in ways that completely change how we think about space and time. Working with them, we've developed new theories that make our old science textbooks look primitive. The human economy, which had been badly hurt when they lost access to Council markets, was now stronger than ever. Free from Council trade rules and monopolies, human merchants had built direct relationships with producers and consumers across the galaxy. Their reputation for fair dealing and creative solutions spread quickly among non-Council species. Engineer Mike Roberts was in charge of building humanity's new infrastructure network. "We're not just copying the Council's old systems," he explained to his team during a planning meeting. "We're building something completely new and better. Our jump gates are faster, more efficient, and open to any species that wants to use them, regardless of their political status." The military had evolved too. General Carol Hayes commanded human defense forces that were much smaller than the Council's massive fleets but far more advanced. Human weapons incorporated technologies from their new alien allies, creating hybrid systems that were both innovative and devastatingly effective. "We're not trying to build an empire," Admiral Stevens explained to his officers during a strategy session. "We're building a community. Every species that joins us makes us stronger, and we make them stronger in return. That's the difference between us and the Council." The contrast was obvious to anyone paying attention. The Council maintained order through bureaucracy and rigid rules that never changed. Humans created networks based on mutual benefit and shared innovation. The Council feared change and clung to traditions that were thousands of years old. Humans embraced adaptation and growth, always looking for better ways to do things. Word of human success was spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that had been rejected by the Council were actively seeking out human contact. Even some Council member species were quietly establishing unofficial relationships with human colonies. The Corinthian Mining Consortium, officially a Council organization, had begun secretly trading with human settlements. Their official reports claimed they were mining asteroids in Council space, but their ships were actually bringing rare minerals to human colonies in exchange for advanced mining equipment. The Zenthari philosophers, a species known for their deep thinking and ancient wisdom, had sent unofficial ambassadors to human universities. They were fascinated by human approaches to problem solving and wanted to learn how humans could innovate so quickly. Dr. Rachel Green, now director of the Human Medical Alliance, had watched with sadness as the Altarian plague continued to spread through Council space. Human researchers, working with samples they had taken before the withdrawal, had completed their cure and tested it successfully, but Council pride prevented them from asking for help, even as their people died. "We could save them," Dr. Green said during a medical conference on New Geneva, one of humanity's most successful colonies. "The cure is complete and ready for mass production, but they have to ask for it, and they're too proud to admit they made a mistake." President Linda Carter, speaking from Earth to a gathering of human colonial governors, summed up the situation perfectly. "The Council said we were too dangerous for their civilized society. Maybe they were right. We're dangerous to stagnation, dangerous to limitations, dangerous to the idea that things have to stay the same forever." The numbers told the story clearly. In just 2 years, the Human Alliance had grown to include over 200 star systems and 53 different species. Their combined economy was growing at a rate that would soon surpass the entire Council. Their technology was advancing so quickly that Council scientists could barely understand the reports they received from their spies. Most importantly, the Human Alliance was happy. Species that had spent centuries fighting each other were now working together on massive projects. Worlds that had been barren and lifeless were becoming garden planets where multiple species lived in harmony. Trade flowed freely, knowledge was shared openly, and conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than force. The Council had rejected humanity for being too emotional, too chaotic, too willing to take risks, but those same qualities had created the most successful interstellar civilization in galactic history. Where the Council saw dangerous flaws, the universe saw valuable strengths. As Admiral Stevens looked out at the stars from his ship's bridge, he couldn't help but smile. Somewhere in Council space, alien bureaucrats were probably filing reports about the growing human threat. They were probably debating new regulations to limit human expansion. They were probably still convinced that their ancient ways were superior to human innovation. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. 3 years after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council was falling apart. Chancellor Zeph High stood before an emergency meeting of the remaining delegates, his crystal body flickering with stress patterns that hadn't been seen in 1,000 years. The great chamber that had once held representatives from hundreds of worlds now looked empty and sad. The situation has become impossible, the Chancellor announced to the worried faces looking up at him. 17 sectors are reporting complete. Infrastructure collapse. The Altarian plague has spread to 3 more star systems, and our medical facilities can't handle the crisis. Pirate attacks in the outer territories have increased by 400%. Councillor Vextar of the Corithian Assembly twitched his insect-like limbs nervously as he delivered more bad news. The Drakmari Confederacy has declared complete independence from Council authority. They're openly allied with the humans now. Our intelligence reports show that human technology and military advice helped them defeat our peacekeeping forces. The Altarian representative looked terrible. His blue scales, once bright and healthy, were now dull and marked with the dark spots that showed he was infected with the plague. "My people are dying every day," he said, his voice weak and desperate. The human medical team was so close to finding a cure when they were asked to leave. Our own doctors can't understand their research methods. We've sent official requests for humanitarian help, but the humans refuse to come back to Council space. Dr. Kethamari, the Council's chief scientist, delivered what might have been the worst news of all. Our technological development has stopped completely without human innovation. Their way of solving problems, their willingness to try dangerous experiments that we thought were too risky, was pushing advancement in every field of science. Without their input, our research programs have slowed to almost nothing. The Vegan delegate, his long skull now marked with deep worry lines, added to the growing list of disasters. The power systems on 14 of our major colonies are failing. The human-designed fusion reactors are breaking down, and we don't have the knowledge to fix them. We're having to evacuate entire cities. Trade Coordinator Naxhun presented numbers that made everyone in the chamber feel sick. Interstellar commerce has dropped by 60%. The humans controlled critical trade routes and manufacturing operations. Without them, we have shortages of essential goods across dozens of worlds. Several member species are questioning whether Council membership is worth the cost anymore. But the intelligence reports about humanity's new alliance were perhaps the most frightening part of the briefing. The humans hadn't just gone away to lick their wounds, they had built something new and incredibly successful. The human sphere of influence now covers over 200 star systems, Intelligence Director Corvus reported grimly. They've made peaceful contact with 47 different species, many of whom were previously hostile to any form of galactic civilization. Their alliance network is growing faster than we ever thought possible. The recent announcement from the Ethereal Collective had shocked everyone in Council space. These energy beings, which most species considered mythical, had not only contacted humans but had entered into a formal partnership with them. The technologies coming out of this collaboration were beyond anything the Council had ever imagined. They're sharing quantum tunneling technology with all their allies, Corvus continued. Human ships can now cross the galaxy in a fraction of the time our vessels need. Their communication networks are faster and more secure than anything we have. Economically, they're beating us in every market. The military situation was equally troubling. General Mordak, who commanded what was left of the Council Defense Forces, struggled to explain how bad things had become. The humans used to maintain security in key sectors through a combination of advanced technology and superior tactics. Without their patrol fleets, lawlessness has exploded across the outer territories. We don't have the ships or the training to fill the gap they left behind. Even worse, many of the pirate groups were now using human-supplied weapons and tactics. Not because humans were arming criminals, but because some of humanity's new allies were former outcasts who had turned to piracy when the Council rejected them. Under human influence, they had reformed into legitimate military forces, but they still remembered all the Council's weaknesses. The Stellar Merchants Guild, once a small trading organization that the Council had barely noticed, had become a major economic power under human partnership. Their efficient supply chains and innovative business methods were taking customers away from established Council trade routes. 3 member species had already announced their intention to leave the Council and join humanity's alliance instead. The Vegans were openly debating whether to follow them. Even some of the founding species were privately questioning whether the Council's ancient ways were still relevant in a galaxy that was changing so rapidly. Chancellor HFY found himself facing something that had never happened in 10,000 years of Council history. Delegates were calling for his resignation. Others were demanding that the Council reconsider humanity's membership application. The very species they had rejected, as too dangerous, had become the foundation of a galactic community that was surpassing the Council in every way that mattered. We made our decision based on human history and observed behavior, the Chancellor reminded the Assembly, his crystal form growing dimmer as stress affected his energy patterns. They were warlike, unpredictable, and refused to accept our guidance. They took risks that endangered everyone around them. Councillor Vextar's response carried bitter irony. And now they've created a civilization that represents everything we claim to value: cooperation, innovation, mutual benefit, while we struggle to maintain what we've always had. The Corithian Mining Consortium representative stood up slowly. I must inform the Council that my organization has been in unofficial contact with human colonies for the past 6 months. The equipment and techniques they've shared with us have increased our productivity by 300%. Our workers are safer, our yields are higher, and our environmental impact is lower than it's ever been. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Unofficial contact with humans was technically against Council law, but the Corithians had been desperate. Their old mining methods were dangerous and inefficient, and they had been facing economic collapse. Furthermore, the Corithian continued, the humans have invited us to join their alliance as full partners. They've offered to share all their technological advances, provide military protection for our mining operations, and give us equal voting rights in their decision-making process. The offer is generous beyond anything the Council has ever provided. More delegates began admitting their own secret contacts with humans. The Zenthari philosophers had been sending students to human universities. The Aquatic Collective had been sharing ocean world terraforming techniques with human scientists. Even some of the insectoid species had been trading rare minerals for human medical supplies. The truth was becoming clear. While the Council had been maintaining its rigid hierarchy and ancient protocols, its own members had been quietly reaching out to the dynamic human alliance that offered partnership instead of subordination. Chancellor HFY realized that he was facing the greatest crisis in Council history. The organization that had governed the galaxy for 10 millennia was becoming irrelevant while the species they had rejected was reshaping galactic civilization. The session ended without any resolutions, but everyone knew what was coming. Soon, the Council would have to make a choice between clinging to their pride and reaching out to the humans they had once considered unworthy. The question was whether humanity would be interested in talking to them again. 5 years after humanity walked away from the Council, Chancellor HFY stood in what remained of the Great Assembly Chamber. His crystal body was cracked and dim, showing the stress of leading a dying civilization. Only half the seats were filled now. 3 more species had left to join the human alliance in the past month alone. We have no choice left, the Chancellor announced to the scattered delegates. Our civilization is collapsing while the human alliance grows stronger every day. We must request diplomatic contact with the humans. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had been the pinnacle of civilization. the model that all other species looked up to. Now they were reduced to begging for help from the very species they had rejected as too primitive and dangerous. The irony was overwhelming. The humans they had dismissed for being too violent and chaotic had created the most successful interstellar civilization in known history. The Human Alliance now controlled over 500 star systems and included 73 different species. Their economy was 3 times larger than what remained of the Council's. Their technology was so advanced that Council scientists could barely understand the basic principles. Ambassador Jake Morrison, now older but still sharp-minded, received the Council's formal request for dialogue aboard the flagship UES Horizon. The ship was a marvel of human engineering, incorporating technologies from dozens of different allied species. Admiral Lisa Barnes, who had been promoted after years of successful diplomatic missions, stood beside him as they read the desperate message. They want to discuss mutual cooperation and the possibility of renewed human participation in galactic governance, Morrison read aloud, then shook his head sadly. 5 years too late. Admiral Barnes pulled up the latest intelligence reports about Council space. The situation was even worse than their worst predictions. Half their remaining territory is in open rebellion. The Altarian plague has spread to 14 star systems now. They never did find a cure without our research. Their economy has shrunk by 75%, and their military can barely maintain order in their core worlds. Dr. Rachel Green, now director of the Human Medical Alliance, had watched the tragedy unfold with professional sadness mixed with frustration. We could have saved millions of Altarian lives. Our treatment protocols were 90% complete when they asked us to leave. Now it's a full pandemic and they still don't have effective treatments. The human response to the Council's request was swift and final. President Linda Carter, addressing both the Human Alliance and broadcasting to Council space, delivered humanity's answer to the galaxy. 5 years ago, the Galactic Council judged humanity unworthy of membership in their civilization. They found us too violent, too chaotic, too dangerous for their ordered society. We accepted their judgment with dignity and withdrew completely from their space. She paused, her words carrying across the galaxy to species that had once dismissed human potential but now hung on every word. Since then, we have built something new, not a hierarchy based on ancient power and established species, but a true alliance of equals. We have welcomed species the Council rejected, formed partnerships the Council deemed impossible, and achieved innovations the Council considered too dangerous to attempt. The statistics were undeniable. The Human Alliance had eliminated piracy in their territories through a combination of advanced patrol networks and economic opportunities that made crime less profitable than honest work. They had solved resource shortages through revolutionary terraforming and asteroid mining techniques. Most remarkably, they had created the first truly post-scarcity economy for dozens of member species. Captain Steve Hudson, now commanding the Human Diplomatic Corps, delivered humanity's terms to the Council delegation that arrived at Haven's Gate, a neutral world that had become a symbol of human diplomatic success. The conditions were simple and absolutely non-negotiable. The Galactic Council may apply for associate membership in the Human Alliance, Hudson explained to the shocked Council representatives. Like any other applicant species, you would be evaluated based on your commitment to mutual cooperation, your willingness to share resources and knowledge freely, and your ability to contribute to the common good of all Alliance members. The role reversal was complete and devastating. The ancient galactic civilization that had considered itself the ultimate authority on interstellar governance was now being offered the chance to become junior partners in the community built by the species they had rejected. Counselor Vextar, his once proud insect form now bent with age and defeat, made a desperate final plea. Surely there must be some accommodation possible. The Council has governed the galaxy for 10 millennia. Our experience, our wisdom, our established institutions must have some value. Ambassador Morrison's response was gentle, but absolutely final. Your experience taught you to fear change, to reject innovation, to maintain power through exclusion. Those are not qualities we value in our alliance. Your wisdom led you to reject cooperation in favor of rigid hierarchy. Your institutions preserved stagnation instead of encouraging growth. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, now leading humanities xenobiology, research across hundreds of worlds reflected on what might have been different. If they had accepted us 5 years ago, we would have been grateful junior partners. We would have followed their lead, accepted their limitations, worked within their restrictive system. Their rejection forced us to create something better. The final meeting between human and council representatives took place on Haven's Gate, a world that perfectly demonstrated humanity's approach to cooperation. Species that had warred for centuries lived and worked together on its surface. Their conflicts had been resolved through human mediation techniques that focused on mutual benefit rather than imposed solutions. Chancellor Zeph High, his crystal, form barely holding together under the stress, made one last desperate attempt at negotiation. The ancient orders, the established protocols, the traditions that have maintained galactic peace for thousands of years. Surely there must be value in preserving the institutions that have served the galaxy for so long. Admiral Barnes answered, "For all of humanity, you maintained stagnation, not peace. You preserved hierarchies that served the powerful while ignoring those you deemed unworthy. Your peace was built on exclusion and fear of change. Our alliance is built on inclusion and the embrace of possibility." The council delegation departed Haven's Gate carrying humanity's final answer. They could apply for associate membership, like any other species, subject to the same evaluation criteria as former pirates, energy beings, and machine intelligences. There would be no special consideration for their ancient status, no accommodation for their prideful traditions, no recognition of their past authority. The message was clear. If the council wanted to be part of the new galactic community, they would have to prove their worth just like everyone else. As the human alliance continued to expand and flourish, encompassing species and territories that now spanned 3/4 of the galaxy, the remnants of the Galactic Council struggled to maintain relevance in an increasingly human-dominated universe. The species that had once been judged too dangerous for civilized society had completely redefined what civilization meant. Their former judges could only watch as humanity and their allies built a future that the Council had never been capable of imagining. 5 years ago, humans had walked away from the Council's table with dignity intact. Now the Council was begging to sit at humanity's table. And the answer was a polite but firm rejection. The regret had come far too late. Humanity had moved on, and the galaxy had moved with them, leaving the Council behind as a relic of a less enlightened age.